Welcome back to Management Development Unlocked. I am super glad you're here. I'm Eric Girard, CEO of Girard Training Solutions, a management development firm that focuses on helping new managers transform from high-performing individual contributors to outstanding people managers. And I also have an Amazon #1 best-selling book called Lead Like a Pro, The Essential Guide for New Managers. Today, I am delighted to have Stacey Caster with me. Stacey, welcome to the show. Who are you and what do you do?
Hi, Eric. Thank you for having me. So I have been a senior leader for over 2 decades. And after doing that, I said, you know what? I want to help other people become better leaders and achieve leadership mastery. So I have founded and I'm the CEO and co-founder of North Executive Advisors, where I do leadership development, I do executive coaching, and I've also been doing a lot of national speaking as well around the country this past year.
Ooh, I want to talk to you about speaking then. That's something
All right.
that's something I want to add to my resume is being a keynoter. So cool. Okay. We'll talk about that maybe off air. All right.
Awesome.
Well, I am super glad that you were here. Thank you, Stacey. Our topic today is transitioning from leader of individual contributors to a leader of leaders. So we're talking about making that next career transition from I'm leading individuals to now I'm leading managers who have individual contributors of their own. So this is something out of the leadership pipeline that you want to be aware of and ready for. And so my first question to you, Stacey, is what's different about leading leaders versus individual contributors?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love this because a lot of leaders don't understand, right? You just look for that next level. And then when you get there, you're like, oh, now what do I do, right? And so this is where my passion is helping new leader of leaders and trying to help them achieve what they're working toward. The difference is when you're leading individual contributors, it's really important to understand their skills and what they do. And a lot of times you might even need to know the skill. Maybe not be the master of it, but you need to at least understand it enough because the way that you coach and guide is usually about the actual product or piece or role and what they're doing. But when you're leading leaders, you are actually coaching and guiding how to be a leader and how to coach and guide those individual contributors. So you shouldn't be jumping in to the details. Now, there's times you need to do that as proof that you understand it, and it's kind of like a trust but verify piece. But the important thing is that you know how to work with your leaders and how to guide them to be a better leader of their team. And it's trickier than it sounds sometimes because the way that you communicate with them, the way that you do one-on-ones, the way that you guide and coaching them is the key in order to be successful.
Aha. So it's not so much about here's how you create the widget. It's here's how you lead the team of people who are creating the widgets.
That's right.
And
that's
like
right.
When you think leadership skill. Okay.
Yeah, really good point. Because when you think of, okay, if I'm a leader over individual contributors, the way that I guide them, the way that I talk to them, the way that I help develop them is very specific in their skill and what they want. But when I'm a leader of leaders, I'm coaching and guiding that leader to be a better leader and teaching them how to ask the right questions, how to think a little more strategically, how to think ahead of the game. And that's different. So it's interesting how you have to change your mindset and change your questions as a leader when you're actually coaching and guiding those leader of leaders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Cool. Well, I think for my audience, this is going to be an interesting discussion because we've spent the last 75, 80 episodes talking about mostly how do you lead individual contributors? And so now we're taking that next step up the leadership pipeline. So that'll be this will be interesting. So let's move on and talk about the specific leadership skills you need in order to lead leaders.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. So the way that I try to explain things to people is when you're a first level leader, when you're leading individual contributors, you typically are looking no more than 6 months out. Mm-hmm. When you become a leader of leaders, you look a year out. And then when you become a senior leader, you will look anywhere from 2 to 5 years out. And so that is the key difference, is how far forward are you looking in order to develop your team and actually put together a plan. Mm-hmm. When you're a leader of individual contributors, you tend to take the ideas that are given to you, make sure you're moving them forward, make sure you're executing in a positive way and moving the organization forward. But when you're a leader of leaders, you're actually helping develop what are we doing to bring that organization forward? What is the plan and how can we do that? And then bringing it to your leader of those individual contributors to, one, gain buy-in, maybe understand what you might be missing, and then help develop that and help them execute it from a different view, right? You're on the sidelines. So you're now the coach and the cheerleader versus actually in the game sometimes.
Yeah. And I could see how you'd really have to switch to being much, much more strategic. And this actually reminds me of a graph I show or a chart I show in Lead Like a Pro, one of my programs. And I talk about how basically it's a 3x3 matrix with all kinds of percentages in it. And the message of it is, as you move up the food chain, you need to be doing less individual contributor stuff and much more strategy, so that by the time you become director, senior director, vice president, you're almost fully focused on strategy and managing others, and you're really not in the weeds at all.
Yeah, I think what to add to that is, as you're moving up the leadership chain, you're now doing a lot of research outside the company too. So when you're a leader of individual contributors, a lot of times you might be learning that new skill and learning some skills to be able to help your individual contributors, but you're not doing a lot of research on the business side. And when you become a leader of leaders, now you need to do that. You need to build that network outside your four walls to understand, what are your competitors doing? What is that new thing that's coming that maybe you need to consider for your organization that your organization's not doing already? And so it's a mind shift of, I need to go outside these four walls of my organization, and I need to really know what's happening in the industry and bring that in. And that is also something that's different and unique. The other thing I want to add is, I do a lot of work in emotional intelligence, and I love your 3x3 square that you were just talking about, because emotional intelligence is such a key piece to any part of leadership, but especially when you become a leader of leaders, you're dealing with more and more people. So really understanding your own emotions and other people's emotions as you're trying to put through these messages and what you're doing there, right? Because the key is, okay, we have this initiative, this is what we want to do. So gaining that buy-in and gaining alignment and engagement is so key. And that emotional intelligence has a huge play in making that effective or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And that is the first and longest chapter in my book. It's all about empathy. And I was going to say emotional intelligence, which is it's part of it, but the chapter is all about empathy, and emotional intelligence is a big subset of that. But the whole point being that you can't get anything done in 2024 if you don't have some idea of how to bend and flex to meet people where they're at, and talk to them in their language in a way that they can understand in that moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is such a key piece. And then I've been doing a lot of work across generations and generations in the workforce, because we're entering the 6th-gen workforce for the first time in our history. And so it's really, really interesting to me, and understanding, same thing with empathy, right? Is if I understand a different generation and what kind of mindset they come in at, that also is a key player as well in order for me to be effective. A lot of times we become leader of leaders, and we may have people that are older than us or really younger than us reporting to us, and that might make ourselves feel uncomfortable or them uncomfortable, and understanding where they're coming from and where your own emotions are at is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just had this flashback to my first job out of college, and it was very old school. It was like everybody who worked in the company was my generation, and everybody who led the company was the generation before us. and it was very hierarchical, and it was very, everything was set in stone, and it was very orderly. But as soon as I got to Silicon Valley, everything changed. Holy moly. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about differences in approach next. What's different about leveling up your career development from becoming a leader to becoming a leader of leaders?
Oh, that's such a great question. I run into this a lot with my clients. And what we find is when we become a leader, more often than not, we're kind of handpicked. We're really good subject matter expert, and somebody says, hey, you'd be great as a leader. And you're kind of like, okay. You're not really sure, but you just say okay and you do it before you know it, you're leading a whole team. And so we make this assumption that the rest of our career is going to go that way, and it doesn't. As we know, as we get further and further up the leadership chain, the opportunities become smaller and smaller. There's only so many senior leader positions available. And so many people I find, many of my clients, they're like, I'm doing everything I've done my whole career, right? I've worked really, really hard. I get everything done. I'm executing on what I'm asked. I'm becoming engaged. My team is effective, but I'm not getting that promotion. And what I always ask people is, did you tell anybody you wanted that promotion? Have you actually raised your hand and said, this is important to me. This is where I want to go. And what do I need to do to get there? So that's the number one thing, is making it known that that's what you want, because you do have to market yourself. And a lot of people are really uncomfortable with that. They don't want to market themselves. They feel it's egotistical, and it can be if you do it in the wrong way. But there is the right way to show that you are an excellent leader and you're the right leader for when that promotion comes up in your organization. But if they don't know you want it, they're not going to ask you always, right? So you have to make sure that they know. So that's the number one thing in being able to make sure, okay, I want this. I want you to know I want this. Putting a development plan with your leader or your leader's leader. So a lot of people make the mistake of, let's say the hierarchy is vice president, director, manager, okay? And I'm a manager and I'm working with my director that I report to become a director. Well, guess what? Directors don't make directors. Vice presidents make directors. So you have to work up a level and skip level to make sure that you're known on the work that you're doing. Now, whether you meet with them on a regular basis, whether you come up with a plan with them, you just make sure that you're marketing yourself in a way. Maybe it's through email updates or projects that you're working on. They see you and the work that you're doing. They see that you're strategic and you're looking beyond that 6 months. Even though you might be at that first level leadership that you're really only required to look at the 6 months, but you're already working like you're a director. So you have to start showing those differences. And to me, that's been the biggest thing with my clients, is they don't realize they have to ask for it. And when they have to start showing it to not just their leadership, but skip level leadership, going up a level.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, and nobody's going to care as much about your career development as you. So you have to advocate for yourself. You have to let people know, have those conversations. And a lot of folks, myself included, don't want to come off as pushy or self-promoting. And yet making sure that your brand inside your company is visible and positive is important. And you're the only one who's really going to care about that.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. It is such a key thing that is like, oh, I'm not gonna come across as egotistical. I'm not gonna, be arrogant. You don't have to be. But when you're not talking in the room, when you're not showing that you've done that work, that is also saying something. Mm-hmm. And so you need to be able to show people, yes, I do understand the industry out there. I do understand the objective and how this is moving the organization forward. And I understand more than just my space that I'm currently responsible for, while also promoting your team that's actually doing the work. Mm-hmm. That is so important. So think of it as you're not just marketing yourself, you're marketing your team and the great work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so now let's talk. Let's get into what I'm kind of calling in my head: good cop, bad cop. So first, good cop. How can a good leader strengthen a business?
Oh, okay. This is a great question. So many ways, but let me try to summarize it down. The first one is you have to have an engaged workforce. Number one, if your team members are not happy, are not enjoying their work, are not excited about what they're working on, you're going to fail. End of story. So you have to make sure that you have a great engaged workforce. So a great leader is going to help them see the vision. And there's a age-old story that I'm sure many people have heard, but I'll just give the very short piece of it. And it's about the bricklayer, right? And you have 3 people that are laying bricks. And the first person you ask, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm laying bricks. And he's building the wall. And the second person says, what are you doing? And he says, I'm building a wall. I'm laying these bricks to build a wall. And the third person, you go and ask the same question to, they're all doing the same work. And he says, I'm building a cathedral. So what's the difference there, right? If I'm just putting brick after brick after brick, versus I'm building a cathedral and I can see the end result and what I'm going to be part of, that excites me. I'm engaged. So as a great leader, you need to help your team see the value that they are providing and what they're doing and get them excited about it. Make sure that they are feeling heard and they're part of it. Even though you may not go with their suggestions, just knowing that you heard out their suggestions and gave them valid reasons on why you may not be going with it or why you might be going with it goes a really long way. So I think that that's the big piece of how you can be a great leader in doing that. And then the other piece is what I said before, is making sure that you understand the industry. If you can tie those two of here's the industry, here's where it's going, this is why we're going to be a great organization and how you are part of it, that's just harmony right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, your story of the bricklayers reminds me of my first manager in Silicon Valley, Brent. And he was really good at letting us all know, like, this is where we're headed. This is what we're building. We're building a corporate university, and this is what we're going to do for the company. And this is how we're going to be recognized in the industry for having this outstanding university. So that was a great first experience in corporate for me. Okay.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important, right? Because when you're doing that, you got to remember the small wins along the way. So I've been in technology most of my career. So it's about what is that product that we're providing people? How are we helping our clients? How are we helping the other team members in other areas? But getting those small wins along the way. So maybe you built the wall of the cathedral. Let's have a big win about that. Let's talk about how that's going to help us get to the cathedral along the way. So really good example.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to celebrate the wins. Absolutely. Okay, let's flip it around. How can a bad leader trash a business? Just make a mess of things.
Oh, well, unfortunately, there's lots of ways. I would say attitude is the first thing, first and foremost. If I always say to people, leaders lead. And people look at me a little odd. It's like, look, if you aren't going to do what you're asking others to do, then do not ask them to do it. It's so important. So if I come in with a bad attitude and I expect everyone else to have a good attitude and actually get the project done when I'm like, all right, I don't know why we're doing this, but we got to do it, right? How can I expect anybody else to really want to do it? But if I come in and say, guess what, everybody? We have a great opportunity to build X widget, and you guys are going to be able to be part of it, right? It's a big difference. So in my opinion, a bad leader that is, I'm going to say toxic, is someone that has a bad attitude, someone that is negative, someone that doesn't align with the organizational goals and just assumes that people are just there for the moment and they're just there for the paycheck. People don't want to be there just for the paycheck. Yes, you're going to have some people like that. But the majority of people get up for the day and go to work because they want to make a difference. And if you can help them see how they're making a difference, then you're a good leader versus a bad leader. If you're just like, just do the work, you're a bad leader. You're toxic, in my opinion.
And I've worked for both. Absolutely.
I think we all have, and we learn from both, don't we?
Yes, we do. Hopefully we learn the correct lessons.
That's right. We learn what not to do sometimes.
Yeah. There's a lot of learning by exception in my book. This happened, and don't do that.
That's right.
So let's focus now on you. And I understand you have a new book that's being released. So tell us about it. What's it called, and what's it about?
Yes. Thank you for asking. It is the Leadership Navigator. It is Chart Your Course to Leadership Mastery. And it has 3 sections. It's available on Amazon today. And I'm happy to say that it is an Amazon bestseller as well. And so we have 3 sections. The first section are individual chapters by different leaders. And so it's their own story of how they became a leader and what they believe is important as a leader. So you get to hear from everyday people that they too and you too can do it and achieve leadership mastery. So that's the first section. And then the middle section is actual leadership principles. So it teaches you different things with whatever you may be working on at your point in your career. So it might be strategic planning. It might be change management. There's all different stuff in that second section. And then the third section are actual templates. So if you're learning about change management, for example, we would have a template in section 3 that would help you with how to organize your change management or how to communicate your change management. And the idea is that this is a book that you're going to pick up over and over again throughout your career, depending on what you're working on. And you might say, oh, I want to go to that section or that chapter and be able to learn from that and leverage that in your career. So that's our goal with it.
Excellent. And what's the name of it again?
The Leadership Navigator, Chart Your Course to Leadership Mastery.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we will make sure that is in the show notes so folks can go to Amazon and find it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Stacey. What a fun conversation. How can people find you?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely. How can people find you if they want to talk to you and learn more?
Yeah, the easiest way is just to go to staceycaster.com, and that's STACEYCASTER. And right on there, you can connect to me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram. I do have a podcast as well, and there'll be a link to my podcast. It's called Leadership Moments is the podcast name, and there's also a link to the book. But that's probably the easiest way. Just go to that website, and you'll be able to connect me anywhere from there.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Please subscribe to the show and connect with me on LinkedIn. Pick up my book, Lead Like a Pro, The Essential Guide for New Managers, available on Amazon. And the first 2 chapters are free on my website, GerardTrainingSolutions.com. If you'd like to chat about how I can help you or your new managers, please drop me a line via my website, GerardTrainingSolutions.com. And we will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.